It has been a while since I've chatted with my next guest, and I'm so excited to see him get this opportunity again on Dana White's Contender Series. It is Austen Lane back here on the program. Austin, how are you, man?
James, man, I'm very casual. How you doing, dude?
I'm doing great. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say casual. I like it. That's you got to
Always.
get that on a t-shirt or something. That looks awesome. But congratulations on getting this opportunity. When did you find out about it? Because it looked like you got plenty of notice.
Yeah. So, man, this probably came to fruition, I would say, a good 6, 7, 8 weeks ago. And it's kind of weird because when they tell you, I'm like, well, can I announce it, or are you guys gonna announce it after? Because I don't want to like rub anybody the wrong way.
Right.
So we've known for a while. Somehow it leaked, and I'm like, well, screw it. If it's gonna leak, then I'll just announce it myself. So yeah, man, we've known for a while. It's been a great camp so far. Because usually I get about 5 or 6 weeks to prepare for a fight. This one I've had a good, 10, 11, 12 weeks, which is ideal.
Yeah, and like I said, really excited to see you back on here. I got to say this though, are you a little bit surprised they didn't outright sign you with your record 11-3? I don't think experience is the issue here, and I think people also forget you got a nice win over Juan Adams, who's a UFC vet as well during that run you've been on. Did that surprise you a little bit? I know you're grateful for it, but still, I'm sure you're looking at that too.
No, for sure. When I beat Juan Adams in the fashion that I did, I was hoping to get a phone call from that. And then when I defended the belt in Fury FC, I was hoping to get a phone call and go right to the big show. And then when a heavyweight fight fell out in Jacksonville, which is in my backyard, when it was like the UFC pay-per-view in Jacksonville, I was hoping to get a call from that. Unfortunately, that never came, man. It is what it is. But I've been staying ready, obviously. So if this is the road I got to take to get there, and this is the road I got to take to get there.
Yeah, and like I said, really excited to see you there. It was what's the biggest difference in your opinion from the Austen Lane we saw in Contender Series the first time to the one we're going to be seeing here on September 20th?
Yeah, so I always say that the first time when I stepped in the cage for the Contender Series against Greg Hardy, that was Austen Lane, the athlete. I would say more than anything. When I left that cage after that defeat, I found out what it meant to be a fighter. And when we say what it means to be a fighter, what it means to look inside yourself and say, I got to improve on this. I got to fix this. I got to surround myself with this. So it was a giant, that first loss with Greg Hardy, it was a giant reflection period of what do I got to do to improve as a fighter? What things do I need to, tool up on a little more? And that's what we did, and there's a few more losses after that. But I always take pride in not being defined by my losses, but how I respond to them. And I think every time that I've been defeated in that cage, I've come back with vengeance and a fire, and that's what I'm bringing now. I'm bringing a complete MMA game. Whether it's striking, whether it's grappling, whether it's jiu-jitsu, I feel like I'm well-rounded, and when I'm well-rounded with my power and my athleticism, special things can happen.
I know that fight was a while ago, but there was a lot going into that fight, right? Because, Hardy, obviously, there's these controversial, right, because of his past. And I know a lot of people were kind of rooting for you there. Did that play a role at all? Just hearing these people being like, dude, knock this guy out. And, because you're not going to have that in this fight, right?
No, for sure. To say it didn't play a role, I don't to me personally, it didn't play a role, but obviously that was the storyline. It was almost like the good guy taking on the bad guy, and in comic book movies or whatever the case may be, usually the good guy wins, and unfortunately I couldn't do that. So after that loss, there were some disappointed people that reached out to me, and to me, it is what it is. That to me is that was me taking all of them in the cage with me, and what I learned later on in my fight career, and this happened like 4 or 5 fights ago, is that I can't take everybody with me. I can't take my city. I can't take my friends. I can't even take my family in the cage. At the end of the day, it's me and it's my coach's voice. And it's all the work that I put in. And that's primarily my focus when I enter the cage now. And it's made a world of difference.
Were you surprised that Hardy didn't have a lot of success in the UFC? It's interesting that you have this fight now, and Hardy just got released from the promotion earlier this year.
Yeah, I'm extremely surprised. I thought a guy with his athleticism, obviously his size, I thought he was going to be the prototypical heavyweight that's going to go far. But obviously it goes to show you that athleticism isn't everything. I mean, you and I can go right now and go on the list of, who's a champion, who's a prime athlete, who's not a prime athlete. That doesn't really matter. You have to have a well-rounded game, whether you're a 135er or whether you're a heavyweight. You have to have a well-rounded game. And I think, in some of his fights, obviously when it went to the ground, he wasn't the most confident there.
Yeah. Let's talk about your opponent here, Richard Jacoby, 7-fight veteran. How do you feel like you match up against him in this fight?
I mean, I feel like it's going to be a great matchup. Watching him on film, he can be kind of deceiving because anybody that can throw a head kick and try to knock you out is an athlete to me. You know what I'm saying? So we have to take his striking very seriously. From what I've watched, obviously a little more of he's patient. He waits for you to make a mistake. Me, I'm a little more of aggressive type. So it's a great matchup on paper from a striker's duel. But also, I think, in terms of his ground game, I don't think he likes to go there per se. In some of his fights, he's rather stood up than, be in a prime position to finish the fight on the ground. So I feel like I have the advantage everywhere in this fight. But definitely I'm not taking lightly, and especially a guy who's had a lot of fights in this past year. He's on a roll right now, and any guy like that's dangerous.
Who've been some of the main training partners this camp helping you get ready for the fight? I know we still got a lot of time, but still got to get some of the names.
There's been a lot of guys in this training camp. We've definitely added as my career has spawned on. Actually, a guy that swung through before his professional boxing by the name of Curtis Harper. Curtis Harper fought about a month and a half ago, and I was getting him ready for his boxing match against this undefeated German cat. I think he was 8-0 at the time. Dude was a stud. They're touting him as the next big thing. Curtis got the finish. Actually, Curtis didn't finish, but he got the win, which was big. So I was sparring, pro boxers. Obviously, I got my guys in town here. I'm Preston Parsons, who's in the UFC, has a gym in Jacksonville. I've been working with him a little bit. I've been working a lot at 10th Planet in Jacksonville in terms of my jiu-jitsu game. So it's been a great progression in terms of trying to solidify all things I need to work on. And I think my striking is always going to be solid, but now I'm bringing more of a grappling based game as well as a jiu-jitsu game. I'm still looking for that knockout, man, at the end of the day, because knockouts to me, they're the most fun. I've had rear naked chokes before, and I'm like, all right, that's cool, that's fine, but that knockout is where it's at.
And you're also a radio personality. That's kind of your day job. How do you manage that with training? And does that taper off closer to fight time, or is the schedule pretty much the same?
The schedule remains pretty much the same. Usually, if I'm 2 weeks out, then I'll start to taper off the radio gig a little bit. But no, it's a pretty nice setup, because here in town in Jacksonville, I'm on a radio station in the morning now. I got moved to, so literally I get up around 5:15, 5:30. I go to work till, if my bosses are watching, I go to work till 11 or else 10 o'clock. I work till about 10, and then the rest of the day I have off. So then that's where my training comes into play. So it's just, it's going to bed a little early, but besides that, man, the schedule is definitely dialed in on point.
How do you envision the fight playing out on September 20th? How's this one going down?
Man, I see myself being very patient in this fight. This is a guy that's going to look for me to make a mistake. And if you go back to my first time against Greg Hardy, and shit, it was so long ago, but if you go back to that time, I rushed in, I got a little too anxious. The more experience that I've gained in that cage, the more sparring partners that I've had, the more calm I've become. So I'm not going to go, try to look for the KO, obviously. I'm going to let it present itself, and when it happens, I will capitalize.
What are your thoughts on the heavyweight division right now? It's a lot different than when you were on Contender Series the first time. We've got John Jones in the division now, waiting for his big debut. We've got, obviously, Cyril Gahn, Francis Ngannou, Curtis Blades, Tom Aspinall, and these new up-and-comers. Just what are your thoughts about the division right now?
Yeah, there's it's definitely a contrast of styles, to say the least. You have Cyril Gahn, who's more of a striking based. Great switch stance fighter. Can incorporate grappling if he wants to, but definitely more of a volume puncher. You got a guy like Curtis Blades now, who's starting to be a little more well-rounded in terms of relied on his wrestling early on in his career. Now is showing some hands a little more. Tom Aspinall, that fight, unfortunately, didn't go Tom Aspinall's way, but once again, a guy, a pretty good athlete, great striking, great ground game. So you're starting to see guys more and more now that are well-rounded and well-versed in all disciplines, and even if it's a guy like Stipe, who, he's disciplined in grappling, but doesn't really use it a lot, but he still has that takedown defense. If you can threaten that takedown defense, and you're not comfortable on the ground, you're going to have a shot to win that fight as well. So I think you're seeing a more complete heavyweight division now in terms of striking and in the ground game as well.
Got to talk some hockey before we get out of here. Thoughts on the Red Wings? It's been a crazy offseason with Gaudreau and everything else. How much have you been paying attention? What are your thoughts on next season?
Dude, I've been paying attention now because obviously I'm a big Detroit Red Wings fan. I was hoping Eisman was going to pull one out of his hat and try to get Johnny Hockey to Detroit. Yeah. Ended up not happening. It's kind of it's kind of bittersweet to live in Florida. For me with hockey, because I grew up a Red Wings fan, right?
Yeah.
And Tampa Bay is right next door. So I got to hear all the time about how great the Tampa Bay Lightning are and how Steve Yzerman made that big of a difference, with all the roster moves and everything before he left the GM job and went to Detroit. So it's super annoying hearing people talk about Tampa Bay all the time because I can't stand Tampa Bay. And I want Detroit to be like Tampa Bay in terms of how Yzerman's built that. So I've been watching it. I thought Detroit had a pretty good draft. I mean, in terms of Yzerman, it's basically an Yzerman I trust now, right?
Yeah.
Because the past couple of drafts, I'm like, I'm not Lucas Raymond. Okay, we'll see. Stahl, we'll see. Well, you have a couple first-team all-rookies now in Detroit. So I'm very excited for Detroit and how that's going to go down. The Stanley Cup playoff this year, Colorado, it is what it is. You know how I feel about Colorado being a Red Wings fan. But good for them. They started out young. They built young. They worked it up. Joe Sakic, my hat's off to him winning the Stanley Cup. So it was cool to see Colorado win one, and Toronto still kind of falling off the map a little bit. But what about you, man? You're a Vancouver fan.
I'm a Canucks guy. Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty right now because, obviously we're in cap hell, and JT Miller, are we going to get to trade him or not? I mean, that's going to be a big distraction if they don't do something before the off season or before the season starts. So we'll see there. Just before we go, I was going to ask you, did you watch Unrivaled on the E60 with the Avalanche and Red Wings? What did you think?
Oh, man, yeah. You want to talk about, you remember like that Michael Jordan Last Dance came out, and that was my childhood. I mean, that was like 1A and 1B with Unrivaled, man. I'll never forget where I was watching that game live. I was with my stepdad, and for those that don't know, it's the Wings Avalanche, Darren McCarty, Claude Lemieux, and I'll never forget when I watched Darren McCarty, punch Claude Lemieux, and I turned to my stepdad. I'm like 6 or 7 at the time, and I turned to him. I'm like, should he have done that? And my stepdad told me, he's like, always have your teammates back. You always have your brothers back. So that was a big thing for me. And James, 1 second, man, I'll show you something real cool.
Yeah, let's see it.
Yeah, so dude, you had to know. I mean, if you're gonna bring up the rivalry, then
I love it. I love it.
You know what I'm saying? So I had to get that thing to Jersey from Darren McCarty, but it was definitely a sweet documentary.
And you're always a sweet interview, Austen. I really appreciate the time, man. Looking forward to the Return on Contender series. If there's anyone you want to thank, any sponsors, any social media, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, cool. Social media, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm not on Instagram yet, even though I feel like the UFC is trying to push me in that direction. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm on Twitter. You just type in my name, Austen Lane, or A_train_92. I got a Facebook fan page. And as far as thanks, man, thanks to you for reaching out, man. It's great to talk to you again. Thanks to all my teammates and everything. Yeah, man, we'll see you September 20th.